All right, this PowerPoint will cover the Great Awakening and the Enlightenment. We're going to look and see how both of those affected the colonies. There's some famous people here, Jonathan Edwards, some terms, natural rights, divine rights, separation of powers. We'll cover them during this PowerPoint. How did ideas about religion and government influence colonial life? The Great Awakening, it was one of the first national movements in the colonies. It reinforced democratic ideals. The Enlightenment informed colonists' ideas about the structure of government and the rights of its citizens. The Great Awakening, it was an emotion-packed Christian movement, and it swept through the colonies for, about a decade. Again, as time went on, many of the colonies became less religious, and this was a way it awakened people to the reality of life, God, the Bible, etc. Some of the famous leaders were Jonathan Edwards. He wrote Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God, perhaps one of the most famous sermons in American history. The Great Awakening led to more tolerance of religious differences. This is between the Christian denominations. People didn't fight as much over what they believed. Anglicans and Methodists and Episcopalians, people kind of worshipped more together. Many new churches appeared, and many churches split because of this movement. People left one denomination to go to another. Switching over to the Enlightenment, a group of European thinkers started an intellectual movement called the Enlightenment. They thought that you can solve problems by human reason. So this is different than the Awakening, which was drawing people back to religion and God, whereas the Enlightenment was the age of reason. It was more of using your mind. It was a very complex system. It involved law, politics, government, religion, art. It was very complex. The Enlightenment reached its height in the mid-1700s in France. This was a European movement. Perhaps one of the most famous Enlightenment thinkers was John Locke. He wrote a book, 2 treatises on government. And again, he argued that people have certain inalienable natural rights, life, liberty, and property. This terminology will be used in our Declaration. Locke challenges the idea of divine right. He said that God grants natural rights to the people. So if you look at this chart, this is in your book as well. Divine right said, look, God gives the king the right to rule, and after that, the king does what he wants, the people just follow along. Whereas natural right said, toward the right of the chart, the right to rule and govern comes from the people. The people's rights come from God, and the people can change their government, unlike divine right. Locke wrote that people form governments to protect their rights. If a monarch violates these rights, the people can overthrow it. And again, this is foundational to the United States. Another thinker, Baron von Montesquieu, he influenced American ideas. In his book, The Spirit of the Laws, he argued for the separation of powers. He said that separating powers, the legislative, the executive, the judicial, this keeps any one person from gaining too much power. And these branches are what I just said, the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. And again, this too would become the basis of government in the U.S. All right, thanks for listening.